You didn't get priced out. You got engineered out. Not by some mysterious market force, not by bad luck, by a system that learned a simple trick: turn shelter into a subscription, then raise the price forever. Make men compete for boxes stacked in the sky. Make them call it ambition. Make them believe that paying half their income just to exist is normal, responsible, even noble. Look at the math you've been forced to accept. Rent can swallow 40, 50, even 60% of your paycheck in major metros. A mortgage can chain you to 30 years of payments, fees, insurance, and repairs, while you tell yourself it's building equity. Meanwhile, you wake up in a place you don't love, in a neighborhood you don't know, looking at a view you didn't choose. Another building, another parking deck, another reminder that your life is being traded 1 month at a time. And here's the part that should make you angry. Most people aren't building wealth, they're financing someone else's wealth. Your rent isn't the cost of living, it's the cost of making a landlord's life easier than yours. Your interest payments aren't how adults do it. They're the toll a bank collects for permission to stay put. And the more you earn, the more you're encouraged to upgrade into a bigger payment so the machine can keep extracting. They sold you a story. Work hard, climb the ladder, buy the house, and you'll be safe. But safety isn't a loan. It isn't a lease. It isn't a zip code with a trendy coffee shop you barely have time to visit. Safety is control. Control over your time. Control over your expenses. Control over your space. Control over your mornings. Control over whether you can breathe. Now imagine this. Your biggest monthly expense doesn't shrink. It disappears. Not as a fantasy. Not as a retirement dream. As a decision. What if you stop playing the game on the hardest setting? What if you move to places where housing costs still resemble reality? Where land still has dignity? Where the pace of life doesn't demand that you be permanently exhausted? That's not running away. That's refusing to be farmed. This isn't a retreat. It's a rebellion. And the escape route looks a lot less dramatic than you think. It looks like a 2-lane road into the mountains. It looks like a small town that doesn't show up in your algorithm because it isn't profitable to advertise. It looks like communities where people still solve problems with skill, not credit. Where a man's value isn't measured by how expensive his rent is, but by whether he shows up, learns, builds, fixes, helps. Here's the truth most people never hear. There are mountain towns where the housing crisis is mostly a city problem, where the main obstacle isn't cost, it's courage. 10 places where the numbers haven't been hijacked, where you can buy time back, where you can cut your obligations so deeply your life starts to feel like it belongs to you again. And no, these places aren't perfect. That's the point. Perfection is what they sell you in the city. Perfect convenience, perfect entertainment, perfect access to things you don't need, all paid for with your peace. The mountains offer something better, a fair trade. Less noise for more life, less pretending for more truth. Let's talk about what that actually looks like. 1. Helen, Georgia. A town that hides in plain sight. Helen doesn't look like a solution. It looks like a joke. A Bavarian-themed postcard with beer halls and chalet facades. The kind of place you stop for an afternoon and forget by Monday. That's why it works. Because when a place is dismissed as a novelty, big money doesn't rush in to squeeze it. The economy runs on tourism and weekends, not on turning every square foot into luxury pricing. The resident population is tiny, the pace is slow, and the surrounding nature is real. Median home prices here can sit in the low 200s. That number matters because it breaks the spell. It proves the world you've been told is unavoidable is actually optional. And beyond the numbers, there's leverage. The kind that doesn't show up on a spreadsheet. You're near water. You're near forests. You're near trails and quiet, which means your entertainment budget collapses naturally. You don't need to buy dopamine when your environment gives you calm for free. If you work remotely, the equation changes fast. You're not trying to get ahead. You're trying to stop bleeding out. You can trade a high-cost address for a low-cost base, then watch what happens when you keep your income and cut your overhead. That's not downsizing, that's strategic withdrawal. And it buys you time, the one asset nobody can replace. 2. Blue Ridge, Georgia, where the mountains still belong to regular people. Blue Ridge isn't a flashy destination unless you're looking for the outdoors. It's waterfalls, ridgelines, cabins, and a town center that still feels like a town center, not an outdoor mall. Prices have risen everywhere, yes, but in places like this, they're still sane compared to the national insanity. You can still find homes far below what mountain living costs in the bigger name towns. The lifestyle is the real sell. Trails that begin near your back door, not after an hour in traffic. Lakes and forests that aren't day trips, but normal life. Nights where the silence isn't an app you pay for, it's the default setting. And here's what matters for a man trying to rebuild control. You can live without constantly spending. In the city, everything costs. Every moment has a price tag. Parking, food, drinks, entertainment, convenience. The privilege of being around too many people at once. Your money drains away in 1,000 small leaks. In Blue Ridge, your money stops leaking. The environment changes your habits. You don't need as much to feel good because you're not fighting your surroundings. And once that happens, you start saving without trying. You start breathing without earning it. That's not a vacation. That's a reset. 3. Boone, North Carolina. Where practicality beats prestige, Boone is a college town, but don't let that fool you. College towns can be a cheat code for stability, steady employment, steady services, and housing that's often modest, well-maintained, and designed for real people, not luxury branding. The mountains are not decoration here. They're the structure of daily life. When you can access thousands of acres of public land quickly, your entire mental health improves without you having to buy a single wellness product. Hiking, fishing, biking. These aren't hobbies you squeeze in. They're part of the rhythm. And for men who feel like they've been stuck in a loop, Boone offers something cities rarely do. A clear sense of seasons. Winter is winter. Spring is spring. Your life stops feeling like one long fluorescent day. Housing can remain far below big city pricing, especially compared to places like Raleigh or Charlotte. And because the community has a practical backbone, university workers, tradespeople, locals who actually live there, you're not surrounded by constant status games. The question becomes, what can you do, not what do you signal? That's a healthier environment for building a life that doesn't depend on approval. Autonomy beats aesthetics every time. 4. Berea, Kentucky. The quiet economy that doesn't worship debt. Berea is a different kind of place. It's not trying to impress you. It doesn't care about your resume. It doesn't need your branding. It has something rarer. A culture built around work, craft, and community. Berea College is famous for its model. Students work as part of their education, and that ethic spills into the town. People fix things. People trade skills. People make things with their hands. There's a sense that value is created, not financed. Housing prices can sit well below $200,000 in many cases. which is almost absurd in the modern American context. But the real advantage is how the town changes your relationship with money. In a place like Berea, you can build a life where your expenses are so low that your job stops being your identity. You can work to support your life, not sacrifice your life to maintain a payment. That matters for men because men are often trained to equate suffering with responsibility. You're taught that if you're not exhausted, you're not doing enough. Berea challenges that lie. It says, be useful, be steady, be present. Don't be enslaved. When housing is cheap, everything gets easier. Saving, paying off debt, taking care of your health, starting a business, learning a trade, building a workshop, helping family, showing up. You don't feel trapped. You feel capable. 5. Eureka Springs, Arkansas, the town that rewards patience instead of speed. Eureka Springs doesn't shout. It whispers. It's old buildings, narrow streets, Victorian bones, and a sense that time isn't something you're supposed to kill. It can be surprisingly affordable relative to how unique it is. But what makes it powerful is the way it reframes what wealth means. In big cities, wealth means velocity. Move fast, earn more, spend more, keep up. In a place like Eureka Springs, wealth looks like endurance and stewardship. Take care of what exists, restore what's worth keeping, live in a way that doesn't destroy you. There are often incentives and programs tied to historic preservation and community improvement. And even without formal structures, the town culture tends to value people who contribute, not just consume. For someone burned out by modern life, that can be a turning point. You stop living like you're being chased. You start living like you're building. 6. Pagosa Springs, Colorado. Real Colorado without the Colorado price tag. Colorado has become a punchline for housing costs, but not all of it. Deep in the San Juans, there are still towns where the price hasn't fully detached from reality. Pagosa Springs is one of them. It's rugged. Winters are real. Snow is not a vibe. It's a condition. That keeps the speculative crowd away. People who live there tend to have a higher tolerance for effort, which is exactly why the place holds together. If you want a life where your money goes further, you need an environment that filters out the people who only show up for Instagram. This is that. The hot springs are famous, yes, but the real benefit is the surrounding land. Public access, wilderness, a sense that the world is bigger than your work inbox. Housing can still be found under what you'd pay in Denver suburbs for a compromised life. And when you combine lower housing costs with a more grounded rhythm, you get something rare. Peace without weakness. A lot of men confuse peace with quitting. It's the opposite. Peace is strength without constant friction. 7. Taos, New Mexico, where belonging matters more than owning Taos is not for everyone. That's another reason it works. It's a place with deep culture, deep land history, and a community that often resists being turned into a commodity. That resistance keeps speculation harder, which can keep opportunities open for people willing to respect the place rather than exploit it. Housing prices can be surprisingly approachable relative to the beauty and uniqueness, especially if you're willing to live in older, simpler structures and learn how to maintain them. And that's the trade. Taos doesn't hand you convenience, it hands you meaning, if you're willing to earn it. Men who have spent years feeling like they're performing for a system often respond strongly to places like this. Because the land doesn't care about your performance. It cares about what you do. Can you take care of a home? Can you take care of yourself? Can you live without constant external validation? If yes, You start to feel something you forgot existed. Groundedness. Not comfort, not luxury. Groundedness. 8. Hood River, Oregon. Work that's seasonal, life that's consistent. Hood River is known for wind and water, orchards and sport, and a particular kind of toughness. The gorge demands respect. Oregon can be expensive, but pockets like this can still offer exceptions, especially relative to Portland area insanity. The bigger advantage is economic flexibility, seasonal work, local industries, and a culture where a man can piece together a life without a traditional corporate ladder. This matters because the one job forever model is collapsing anyway. The new advantage is adaptability, remote work, trades, seasonal gigs, small business, skills. In a place like Hood River, those paths feel normal, not risky. You can work hard in bursts and live steadily year-round. You can build a life where your income isn't tied to a single employer's mood. If you've ever felt like your job owns your nervous system, that kind of flexibility is priceless. 9. Leavenworth, Washington. The disguise that kept it livable. Leavenworth looks like a performance, and in a way it is. The themed facades attract tourists. The town sells an experience. But behind that experience are real people who maintained a real community. Places like this can have unusual arrangements, seasonal employment that includes housing, community networks that help newcomers get established, and a rhythm built around the seasons rather than corporate cycles. And if you can find your way into the practical layer beneath the tourist layer, you can build a life that's far less expensive than the big city West Coast trap. The key is understanding the difference between visiting and living. Visitors buy experiences. Residents build routines. A routine in the mountains costs less than a routine in a city, and it gives more back. 10. Joseph, Oregon. The price of freedom is responsibility. Joseph is the most honest deal on this list. It's not polished. It's not convenient. It doesn't pretend. It offers something many men secretly crave, a life that requires you. The mountains are big. The distance is real. The stores are fewer. The systems are thinner. If something breaks, you fix it or you learn. Housing can remain comparatively affordable because the place demands competence. Not everyone wants that. Not everyone can handle that. But if you can, the payoff is enormous. You trade constant consumption for capability. You trade dependence for skill. You trade noise for clarity. You're not buying a lifestyle, you're taking on a life. And once you do, the city's promise starts to look ridiculous. Pay more to live smaller. Work more to live less. Spend more to feel worse. Out here, you spend less and your life expands. Now let's pull this together, because the point isn't to romanticize small towns or pretend the mountains solve everything. The point is to expose the lie you've been living under, that you have no choice. You do. The system wants you convinced that freedom is something you buy after you make it. But for most people, making it just means upgrading your cage. More income, more payments, more prestige, more pressure, more convenience, less life. These towns represent a different model. Reduce the obligation and the rest gets easier. Lower the housing cost and you recover your margin. Recover your margin and you recover your options. Recover your options and you recover yourself. This isn't about becoming a hermit. It's not about rejecting society. It's about refusing to be financially cornered into a life that doesn't fit you. When your housing cost drops enough or disappears because you buy modestly, pay it off fast, or choose a lower cost path, your entire future opens up. You can Pay off debt instead of servicing it forever. Build a cash buffer that makes you unbreakable. Work fewer hours without falling behind. Invest without gambling your rent money. Take care of your body without begging for time. Start a business because your baseline is low. Help your family because you're not drowning. Say no to jobs that hollow you out. Sleep like a man who isn't being hunted by bills. That's the real American dream. If you want to use that phrase honestly, the ability to choose your life. And yes, there are trade-offs. Small towns can mean fewer job options in certain fields. Healthcare access can vary. Social life looks different. Winters can be rough. Internet can be hit or miss in the wrong spot. You might have to drive more. You might have to learn things you never learned in the city. Basic repairs, basic planning, basic self-reliance. But understand what you're trading. You're trading convenience for sovereignty. You're trading a short drive to entertainment for a long-term life you can actually afford. You're trading crowded status competition for quiet competence. And for a lot of men, that trade isn't a sacrifice. It's relief. Because the truth is, most men don't need more stimulation. They need fewer drains. They don't need more options on a menu. They need more control over their time. They don't need a better apartment. They need a better deal with reality. So here's the question that matters. If your rent vanished, what would you do with your life? Would you build? Would you train? Would you learn? Would you travel? Would you rest? Would you start something real? Would you stop waking up already behind? You don't need permission to ask that question, and you don't need permission to answer it. The cage isn't locked, it's rented. And the moment you stop paying for it, you start living again. Pick your terrain, pick your town, pick your terms, not because it's easy, because it's yours.